What's going on? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I wanted to discuss the breaking news that Dana White just dropped. The UFC 308 main event has been announced. Ilia Topuria is defending his featherweight title against Max Holloway, and the co-main event is going to be Robert the Reaper Whittaker fighting Khamzat the Wolf Chimaev. Then in the featured bout, it is Cyril Gane versus Alexander Volkov 2, and another fight on the card is Magomed Ankalaev versus Alexander Rakic. Is this card of the year? This card is absolutely stacked. And let's jump right into the breakdowns of each individual fight. Thank you guys so much for watching the channel. And if you guys want to support the channel, please hit the subscribe button. It is the best way to support the channel since we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And turn on the post notifications if you guys want to get notified as soon as UFC content like this drops. And please tune into other content on my channel. And let's jump right into the UFC 308 main event and fight card news. Okay, finally, the fight that has been meaning to happen and the most anticipated fight of the entire year is Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway, and that fight is going to be going down at UFC 308, going down in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates, and this is an absolute amazing fight to be had. This is the fight that everyone has been wanting to see in the UFC featherweight division. Ilia Topuria, the new UFC featherweight champion, who defeated Alexander Volkanovski back in February in Anaheim, California, is putting the featherweight strap on the line to Max Blessed Holloway. Max Holloway just knocked out lightweight BMF title holder Justin Gaethje at UFC 300 in the featured bout there, in one of the most incredible fights the UFC has ever seen. And Ilia Topuria just knocked out Alexander Volkanovski at UFC 298 in the main event, and this fight has fireworks written all over it. This fight is going to be one of the fights being considered fight of the year. You have Max Holloway with the best cardio, one of the best chins inside the UFC organization, and you have Ilia Topuria, the matador, who hits like a truck, who has the greatest jiu-jitsu, some of the greatest jiu-jitsu in the organization, has great wrestling, and has the skills to go in there and beat someone like Max Holloway. But Max Holloway is easily Ilia Topuria's toughest challenge. Alexander Volkanovski doesn't have a chin like Max Holloway does, so those shots that Ilia Topuria could land on Holloway won't do as much as it did to Volkanovski. But this fight has been needing to happen since Ilia Topuria won the bout, and since UFC 300 when Max Holloway called out Ilia Topuria saying that he is the bull and Ilia is running away from him. And honestly, this fight, like I said before, is going to be amazing. I cannot wait to see the strategy employed by Max Holloway to really avoid the wrestling and the takedown of Ilia Topuria, as well as being able to almost be the matador to Ilia Topuria. His striking ability being so polished, so clean, so powerful in every little facet. Ilia Topuria is young, up and coming, and hungry, and he is the current UFC featherweight title holder. And I think that this fight has absolutely banger written all over it, and this is the fight to be had in the UFC. Like I said, Max Holloway is one of the best UFC featherweights of all time, and Ilia Topuria is the new generation, and this fight has been meaning to happen forever, and I cannot wait to see it at UFC 308 in Abu Dhabi. I'll go into a further breakdown of this, but this is just the fight announcement. In the co-main event, we got Robert Whittaker versus Khamzat Chimaev, and this is another banger of a fight. These two were scheduled to fight at UFC Saudi Arabia in June, on June 23rd or June 22nd, one of those two dates, and that was supposed to be an amazing fight and the biggest test of Khamzat Chimaev's career. We all know that Khamzat Chimaev is an undefeated fighter, and Robert Whittaker is one of the greatest middleweights of all time, but this fight has two alpha males going head-to-head in the co-main event of this card. This fight is absolutely amazing. It has banger written all over, and I truly hope it's a 5-round co-main event because we need to see Khamzat Chimaev in some more 5-round co-main events. And Robert Whittaker has all the skills to beat Khamzat Chimaev. I know I've made a couple other videos on it, but those were outdated, I feel like, for this. Robert Whittaker just came off a main event domination of Ikram Iliskerov at UFC Saudi Arabia. And Khamzat Chimaev just fought Kamaru Usman at UFC 294 last year in Abu Dhabi. So it's going to be a year layoff for Khamzat Chimaev, and it's going to be Robert Whittaker's third fight of this year. And I love when Robert Whittaker is active. He's one of the most fun fighters in the UFC organization. He's hungry for that middleweight title shot, rematch against Dricus du Plessis, and Khamzat Chimaev wants to go get that middleweight title and capture his first ever UFC title. Robert Whittaker has already been the middleweight champion, so he wants to go recapture the crown. But these two fighting is the perfect matchup for Robert Whittaker. This is probably Khamzat's hardest test in the UFC middleweight division, considering of how good Robert is on the feet, and of how good his takedown defense is, and of how experienced Robert Whittaker is in every single category of the game. He has perfected the jab, the Reaper combo, the 1-2 high kick, and it is something that is absolutely perfect to watch, because Robert Whittaker is one of those fighters who is one of the nicest overall fighters inside the UFC organization, but truly has some of the nastiest skills going into this fight. I think that this will 100%, like I said, be the hardest fight in Khamzat Chimaev's career, and I truly do think that Robert Whittaker has a really massive shot to go in there and beat Khamzat at UFC 308. And the featured bout is a fight that I've already broken, but it is confirmed by Dana White, and that being Ciryl Gane versus Alexander Volkov, probably for a heavyweight title eliminator. This fight is absolutely insane. We got Ciryl Gane, who's one of the best strikers inside the UFC heavyweight division, and Alexander Volkov, who is a genuine giant in there. These two have already fought before, where Ciryl Gane got the 5-round decision victory in a fight night main event. And Alexander Volkov right now looks like he's coming into his prime by absolutely demolishing Sergey Pavlovich at UFC Saudi Arabia as that co-headliner to that Robert Whittaker fight. But this fight is an amazing fight. See Ciryl Gane fight back. He wanted to fight in Paris as that UFC Paris main event, but that went to Benoit Saint-Denis versus Renato Moicano, which is a great fight. But Ciryl Gane versus Alexander Volkov is an amazing fight to be had. This is a striker's dream in the heavyweight match. This heavyweight fight has genuine strategy behind it. And like the Curtis Boys versus Tom Aspinall fight, that had genuine strategy behind it. This fight 100% allows for strategy for both sides. Adjustments are going to need to be made. And Alexander Volkov could go in there and knock Ciryl Gane out, or Ciryl could go in there and knock Volkov out to gain access to becoming the heavyweight champion sometime soon and challenging Tom Aspinall. We all know that Volkov fought Tom Aspinall and he got submitted in the first round, but Ciryl Gane has yet to face Aspinall inside the UFC organization. This fight, I will leave the link to my other breakdown of when this fight dropped in this video somewhere, but truly, I think that this fight happening in UFC Abu Dhabi is a massive fight to be had. The last fight I want to talk about that was broken today was Magomed Ankalaev versus Alexander Rakic, and this is very surprising to me that Magomed Ankalaev isn't getting the UFC light heavyweight title shot, and that Magomed Ankalaev is fighting Alexander Rakic, who just came off a loss to Jiri Prochazka at UFC 300. Alexander Rakic is a massive human being, and he was hitting Jiri with some crazy shots. And this fight between the two is an amazing fight to be had. If Alexander Rakic gets the win at UFC Abu Dhabi, this would be one of the biggest wins of his career and would immediately throw him into title contention. Magomed Ankalaev is a Dagestani wrestler. We all know he's got some power in that striking, knocking Johnny Walker out in January of his last time inside the UFC octagon. And this fight is going to be a very good light heavyweight meaningful bout, and truly this card is absolutely stacked. These two going into it could possibly determine the next light heavyweight challenger. We all know Jiri Prochazka got knocked out at UFC 303 versus Alex Pereira, and Pereira defended his title against Jamal Hill at UFC 300. So this could possibly very well be the next UFC light heavyweight main event. And does this mean that Alex Pereira versus Tom Aspinall is next for another title defense? Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think about the UFC Abu Dhabi fights, the main event being Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway, the co-main event being Robert Whittaker versus Khamzat Chimaev, the featured bout being Ciryl Gane versus Alexander Volkov, and another fight on the card being Magomed Ankalaev versus Alexander Rakic. This has a card of the year written all over it, having some of the best fights of the year, and an absolutely stacked pay-per-view to go with it. I know some of the pay-per-views recently, 304 was okay, 303 was okay, 302 was pretty good, 301 was awful, and then compared to the beginning of the year, 298, 299, and 300 were absolutely stacked. We're getting back to that stacked region with UFC 308. 08 in Abu Dhabi, and I cannot wait for this fight card to happen. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and it is the greatest way to support the channel. Also, please turn on the post notifications so you guys are always notified when I release UFC content, and considering that 97.2% of my viewers who are not subscribed, please go down there and hit the subscribe button. It will 100% help out the journey, and every little subscription from you guys means so much to this channel, helping it grow and helping it get more out there. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and I will see you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.